for parents and students. And that can be accessed through this little link here, this online state resources, online testing resources page. And so we've added a whole bunch of links here, including a video how to take a remote test. This is essential viewing for students. It shows them the process of taking the test remotely using their secure browser. You'll need to make sure that students see this. It's available for parents to watch as well, but kids may need to view this more than one time. We've posted the video in Spanish as well. We've also done a Chinese version. Maybe it's linked here. Well, at any rate, there is a Chinese version available as well. I've opened up this one. All these are Chinese resources, but everything is available in English and Spanish as well. We've got information about how to install the secure browser on students' personal devices. Hopefully, we won't have very many students using their personal devices because it creates some problems. We're only supporting Mac OS, and this is not the newest version of Mac. Right when the state was preparing for testing, getting the secure browsers ready, Apple came out with a brand new update to the Mac OS called Big Sur that is not supported by the secure browser. They're working on programming a new version of the secure browser for the newest Apple version, but currently it's not available. So students, if they're going to use an Apple product, need to make sure it hasn't been updated with Big Sur. We have it in Windows as well. Chromebooks are not supported at all. But we've got a variety of resources here for parents that you can point them in this direction if they ask you. But we've been doing a lot of communication out there as well. Principals and the district have been sending out messages about this stuff. Another place I want to direct you to is going to have information for you. And it's this Spring Administration Remote Testing Guidelines website. They've created a whole website and linked it off of this yellow banner here on the CAASPP.org webpage. So there are a whole bunch of resources here. I won't go through all of them, but I do want to point you to the practice testing page here. This talks about the importance of taking students through a practice test session before administering the actual test. And they are recommending 2 practice sessions with students, examiner and student together. And it just goes through the instructions on how to do it and some ideas about how to do it. So that could be a useful resource for you. The other one that's very important here is the videos and quick reference guides. These are videos you're going to want to see before you administer the test or even administer a practice session. This is the CAASPP section. Scheduling, starting, stopping a remote session, how to schedule a remote test, how to start remote test session. Those are handouts. Monitoring, giving, and then here's the how to take. This is the same video that's posted off of the district website. And this is a new video, it looks like, just came up today. I didn't know it was coming. But apparently how to conduct a practice test session. Yeah, so I have a feeling I know what this is. But that means I don't have to show you something I showed the group last week because they've created this. Down here are the ELPAC specific ones. It's this one right here is ELPAC specific, how to do the speaking test. Otherwise, the other videos are the same as for CAASPP. So that's a really useful site for you. And if you haven't seen any of these already, at some point your test site coordinator is going to point you at these, either show them to you in a meeting, or ask you to watch them independently. So those are the resources that are available to support CAASPP, both provided by the district and by the state. The next agenda item I have listed here is how to locate students' SSID numbers, because the students who are going to be taking the test through the secure browser are going to need to have their SSID available to them. And we have provided parents with instructions on how to find their own SSID number, and they should be encouraged to do that ahead of the test session. But we know that inevitably some students are going to come to their testing session unprepared. They either didn't or couldn't get their SSID. So you'll need to have them handy so that you can send it to them through a private chat window to any student who didn't get it on their own. So the best way to do that is to go into IO assessment. Everybody should have on their desktop a tile that says SBAC student cards. If you don't, that's okay, because we have, is it under testing? I forgot it. There, you can get it somewhere here. There it is, SBAC student cards. You can always use the menu bar if you don't have the tile showing. So I'm going to click there. And this takes me to what's called the student picker page. A lot of the reports have this. You can, if you're in a secondary with departmentalized, you can pick one period at a time and print separate reports, or you can also filter here. So for example, if you're preparing to give ELPAC and it's only given to English learners, I can filter and say, only give me my English learners. So language fluency is limited English proficient. And when I generate report, and it downloads a file. Oops, I can't see my whole screen here, right? These windows are blocking me. Here we go. I ask it to print a PDF. And down the file comes. And here's a PDF that lists all the English learners in a classroom at Baldwin. Here are their SSID numbers. This is probably all you need. These are the things that we usually cut out or print onto a label and hand to the student when we're testing in person. But anyway, that's how you find the SSID numbers. You can, there are other ways to do it. You can get them out of Aries as well, but this is just a really handy thing at your fingertips, so I recommend it. Okay, that's that item taken care of. The next item on my agenda is to talk about IABs. And the first item was how to schedule one. So, I mentioned earlier that the importance of practice testing. And for CAASPP, an ideal way to practice is by using the SBAC IABs. You can access them here. from CAASPP.org. There are those green buttons there. And it takes you to a page with a bunch of resources for Smarter Balanced interim assessments. So one of the resources I wanted to show you here, and again, I have to, is, well, let me go back. From these resources here, the interim assessment by grade is a really helpful document. And I think I have it open somewhere, one of these tabs. Here we go. So this is the document that shows you the information about the interim assessments by grade. And once you found your grade, this happens to be 4th grade, it tells you a little bit about each assessment, each of these IABs. This is for 4th grade. This is English Language Arts. This is math. It tells you the claim that it addresses, the assessment targets they address, and within the assessment targets are the standards that are getting assessed. This is an important column to note. This lists the number of items that need to be hand scored in the hand scoring system. I always encourage people to take a look at these that require no hand scoring first. If you're unsure about how deep you want to get into it, it's better to give one of these tests. And notice most of them for math don't have any hand scoring. You know, kids will take this test and these get scored automatically. A score is available within minutes of the students submitting the test. Whereas the ones that require hand scoring, you're not going to get a score until you've gone through and given each student response a score. So like I said, if you're not sure how much commitment you want to make to this process, stick to the ones that have 0. And it's interesting, revision historically has been an area that students haven't done very well on in language arts. And so, you know, it kind of makes sense to hit that particular IAB. Okay, so that's, you know, once you've looked at this, you've identified what IAB you might want to give, like let's see. Oh, I want to also mention that we've got these IABs. These are the original IABs. I was pointing down here thinking these were math, but these are actually the focused IABs. They're a little bit shorter and they concentrate on a single assessment target rather than multiple targets like these do. So they become a little bit more concentrated on you know, very particular set of content. Here are the math ones, but again, most of the math don't have any scoring to do. Okay, so once you've picked your IAB or the IAB you think you might like to administer, it's a good idea to actually preview it ahead of time. And that's what the interim assessment viewing system is for. You have to log in. These aren't open to the public. Pick your grade. And I was interested in the revision one at 4th grade, so I'm going to select that. And what it does is it basically takes you through, delivers the test to you as if you're a student. So you can scroll through, take a look at the items, just double check to be sure, in fact, this is the test you'd like to give. And once you're satisfied, you can just stop. Yes, I want to pause and get out of there. Okay, so you've confirmed that's the IAB you want to give. In order to give the IABs, you need to click on this link here, Test Administrator Interface for all online tests. That's also on the home page, but it's linked here. Again, it's login. So this is the Test Administrator Interface. One of the things, new features they have here is the ability to schedule a session ahead of time. If you plan to give this assessment, say next week, you can acquire the session and the session ID, set up the session and acquire the session ID here, and then you can share the session ID number to the students ahead of time. So it'll save a little bit in terms of prepping that day you're going to deliver the test. It'll save you a little time. But if you're ready to give the test right now, you just click Start a Session Now. You've got to select your institution, school, in other words. So you need to pick your test here, and you got to be careful now because the actual tests have become live. They are available to us now as of today. So be sure you're actually going for the interim assessments rather than the actual operational summative assessment. Revision. Okay. And then I start my session as a non-standard. So there's the session ID that gets shared with students. Students who are taking an IAB at this point, they can either do so through the web-based student testing interface, which bypasses the secure browser, or they can use the secure browser. Either way, they'll need their SSID number and the test session ID number to actually get in and start taking the test. More information about all that is, of course, contained in those videos. I'm going to stop this session now. So that's the lowdown on the interim assessment blocks. So you've given the test. Students have taken it, and you want to take a look at their results. Well, that's my next item here. Okay, I'm going to go back to the welcome page here. So a couple of years ago, they introduced this new reporting system, the California Educator Reporting System, or CAASPP, as it's commonly known. So this is where interim assessment results will appear. This also requires a login, but it's remembering that I'm logged into other systems right now. So this is where you'd go. I can't show you what your results or what your access looks like from this actual page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go instead to the sandbox and see if I can get that to work. So they've given us this sort of training tool to play around with fake data in it. And like I said, last week, I tried to do it and it wouldn't work for me, but I practiced this morning with it and it seemed to be working fine. Aha, I couldn't get past this drop down last week. So I'm going to just select middle school. I'm not sure who's out there, but it kind of works the same for a teacher, regardless of the level. The only difference is that you will have some groups listed here. If you're departmentalized, you'll have a set of a group for each of your periods. This is just an overall grade level thing, but it's going to function pretty much the same way. So I'm going to select grade 8 because I looked at their data earlier. Now it defaults to showing you the results from the test most recently taken. I don't know why they do that, but they do. If you want some other test that isn't the most recent one, you can click here to select assessment, and you can see all the ones that are available. I'm just going to go ahead with the one they defaulted me to. And so what we're looking at here is test results for 10 students in a group. For some reason, each student appears to have their very own session ID. I don't know, maybe this was given remotely, I'm not sure, but it's fake anyway. But if you're curious about seeing results from only a single administration, this is one way to do it. You can see this group of students did pretty well. We've got 90% of the students either at near standard or above standard, with only 10%, one student scoring below standard. So here they are, and here are their reporting categories, they call them, their levels, and their scale scores that the levels are based on. The header row here is active, so you can actually sort. See, I wanted to sort it from high to low. I could click on this button, and it's actually going low to high here. So here's the one student who got scored below standard. Here are all the near standard students. And oops, for some reason, I don't know why there's a lapse there. Well, let me sort by this column then. So here's the below standard, near standard, and the above standard students. So you could sort of group these kids by their score and design some instruction to meet them where they are. Now, this student here scored the lowest, the only below standard student. So you might want to take a look at how she did specifically. You can see, here's a question she got correct. She earned the points. Here's a question she got incorrect. So you can sort of sort by this and cluster all the standards she did not perform well on. You can even sort by standard. Take a look. Here's this 8-point EE5, 8-point EE6, all standards she struggled with, and I think they're probably quite related. So this is an easy item that she couldn't get correct. So it might be good to take a look at that item. This is the item viewer. And you could take a look and see if you could figure out why she was challenged by this item. If it's a constructive response item, it should give you a rubric and an example of correct response. And then there's this tab that shows information about the item. It's DOK levels, the claim, the target that it addresses, the DOK levels, the item difficulty, and the standard specifically, and spells it out there. So that's a lot of important detail there. That's looking at the students, in the class as a whole. I'm going to click back. Get back to my starting point. We can also organize the results by item. And so we can see, how the class as a whole did on certain items. So if I click here on full credit, here I get the items that not very many kids got correct. And again, I could take a look at the item and see what it is about the item that, that's all the kids, how the kids responded to their item. There's the item viewer. You can take a look and see, why you think it is that students had so much trouble with this item, what misunderstandings or missing skills do they have. that caused them to have trouble on the item. Okay, there's also the key and item distractors. So you could see the items and how students were attracted to incorrect items for some of the items involved. So here's one that a lot of kids had trouble with. Only half of them selected the correct answer of B, but a whole lot of them were attracted to the answer A. And the others, C and D, also got some support. So you could take a look at that and see, you know, what is it about the, you know, it could clue you into to where their misunderstanding is. You know, what misunderstanding led a student to answer A instead of B, or C or D instead of B. And, you know, design lessons to help them get around that misunderstanding. Okay. There is a little bit of disaggregation you can do. If you click on the filters section here, you can ask for specific subgroups, either, you know, demographic or the race ethnicity. But, you know, you can't do low socio, you can't do special ed. Those are filters they don't provide us with, but we could do a little bit of disaggregation here. So that's the SIRS system. As the results from the summative assessment start coming in, and from ELPAC, your students' scores will be populated here, so you'll have a opportunity to look and see the scores before they get put into the state, you know, the district's data assessment system, currently IO. I can't load scores into that until I get the final file that has everybody's score in it. But as scores become available, they'll start appearing in SIRS right away. So, you know, it'll give you a quick glimpse into how students are doing. Okay, so that actually takes me to the end of my agenda here. So that went pretty quick. So about 15 minutes quicker than last time, because I didn't have as much technical trouble, I guess. So anyway, I'm ready to open it up for questions. So if there are any in the chat that somebody could read to me.
Sure, yeah, we did our best to answer as we kind of went along, but for the purposes of people that maybe haven't seen it yet, I'll read off some of the questions. Some people asked again about SSID numbers, some kind of like the best practices or at least recommendations for getting that out, disseminating out to families. I know last week you had chimed in with that, Mike. Did you want to try answer, provide insights there?
Yes, so we've created this document that was on the page, the district home, you know, linked off the district homepage, that takes them step by step through the process of getting the SSID using the student parent portal. But, you know, so I would, you know, ask that you promote that strongly with students ahead of time. I know that blasts are coming from the district about such things. But even so, some schools have elected to mail the SSIDs home. It's kind of awkward to email them because you'd have to do one email at a time to each student, because the SSID number is a piece of personally identifiable information, PII. And so it has to be kept confidential. But US mail is considered a secure method of communication because it's protected by federal law. Tampering with the mail is a felony. So So that's what some school sites are electing to do. We decided as a district not to do it because of the costs involved. But if schools have it in their budget to do a mailing, then that's great. Another way to do it, it would be to send them home in a packet pickup. I've visited just about every school when I was delivering ELPAC materials, and every school had some method of doing packet pickup. The concern I would have with some of the school sites that were doing that is that there's just a box sitting out there in the open. And so really there was no direct control over who took what envelope. You'd want to actually have somebody out monitoring that pickup if that was the method you chose. But between these methods, we should have all the kids with their SSID numbers. And mind you, it's only needed at grades 3 and up. For ELPAC, the K-1-2s don't log in themselves. It is the examiner that logs in. So there's one less worry.
Another question, Mike, thank you for your answers, is asking with regards to, do we actually think that the state is going to follow through with there being a summative SBAC?
Well, the feds indicated that they were not open to blanket waivers of the test. Okay. The State Board of Ed met last week. I listened in on their meeting, and they did decide that they would apply for a waiver of the science test, thinking that there is probably a good chance that the science test would be waived. They didn't ask for a blanket waiver of testing for language arts and math, but what they are going to ask for is to substitute local assessments for the SBAC. This will probably be denied, so we need to plan on moving forward with smarter balanced assessments in language arts and math. But should they approve that, we would be reporting to the state our district interim assessment results, and those would be published, made public. I don't hold out a whole lot of hope that happens, or even not sure I'm even rooting for it, because our district interim assessments aren't quite as standardized, shall I say, as a state assessment is. And we had not planned on doing a second interim assessment at grades 3 and up unless SBAC was canceled. So we would be scrambling to get that test done as well. But at least we've had some experience with testing through IO and know it's not as problematic as using the secure browser remotely. I guess I will share, there have been a few schools that have started on ELPAC testing, and most of them are experiencing some real challenges in delivering that test remotely. And these are issues that would also translate to SBAC as well. So I've got a mixed set of feelings, but no knowledge solidly, just other than the waiver that is going to be requested of the feds, and who knows how long it's going to take the feds to give us an answer. So we just need to plan on giving these tests and respond accordingly if something changes.
Thank you, sir. Let's see, other questions. I guess there's just this distinction trying to point out that we were using different exams for the district interim assessments because people were unsure if the IABs that you had alluded to earlier were the same exact test that we had used for the district interim assessments. So I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Well, what we used for the district interim assessments this year are tests that were built from the inspect item bank to follow the blueprints for the interim assessment block. For language arts, it was read informational text, IAB. So it followed the same blueprint, assessed the same standards at the same weight, but were items drawn from a different item bank than Smarter Balanced uses. And we made that decision because we were not sure about the challenges of using, of testing and getting SSID numbers out and so forth. And we needed to move fast because State Bill 98 made some very specific demands on us in terms of testing, and we had to get moving. So, now that we have the non-secure browser and we have a plan for getting SSIDs out, or process at least, the IABs become an option for us to give now, but not as interim assessments. In fact, we learned after we'd already made the choice last year, we learned that we're actually not supposed to use them for what they call high stakes. District interim assessment, because it's used to reclassify English learners as fluent English proficient, it is by definition a high stakes test for them. So we're not supposed to use the IABs for that. So I don't know exactly how we'll move forward next year, but we'll be using these mirrored blocks in IO for language arts and math in grades below third through eighth grade. I think that answered the question. Kind of forgot what it was.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're talking about the distinction between our actual district interim assessments, or the DIAs, in comparison to the actual IABs or the CAASPP version of interim assessments. The next question is asking if we're going to get this information in writing, because it's a lot for teachers coming their way. And I will say that it is going to be recorded, or it is being recorded, and the link will be there. So if you're wanting to rewatch, is there any more other places or plans in the future, Mike, that you know of in terms of sharing this information with teachers outside of the links and the stuff that you had highlighted at the very beginning?
Yeah, there's a lot of written documentation on those web pages. I would sort of encourage you to bookmark CAASPP.org, because it's all there. It's all there. It is a fountain of riches when it comes to information.
I had put inside of the chat, someone had asked a direct question, and I guess it kind of ties to the next one. People said, how are we going to be able to do this remotely? And then I did write in the chat the fact that if you have a district device, students will already have a secure browser installed on their devices. It's only when we talk about kiddos using personal devices. So Mike talked about earlier, I know, whether it be a Windows device or a Mac device, kind of how that will play out. And again, that's for personal devices. Is there any more information, Mike, you might want to share with about how do families do this whole testing, at least for summative testing, remotely?
Yeah, so that's why the state prepared the videos that they did, encouraging parents to watch the videos on how to take a test. We've also sent home a mailing to students. We did that about a month ago. We sent an information letter using language the state prepared, describing what the testing would be like and some conditions that were needed in order for the testing to be successful, including the use of video. And so, we've started that conversation. Principals and the district are sending out blasts to students, info blasts about it to reiterate these things. In terms of the secure browser, as Gabriel said, any district device that students have already have the secure browser installed. We were able to push that installation remotely, And, you know, something like 13,000 computers got updated remotely. There was a small handful across the district of maybe 300 or so that the installation wasn't successful. And I know since then, a bunch of other issues came up with the iBoss causing problems, but the secure browser was a good, clean installation in most cases. The idea, the students who have not accepted a district device, though, one of the tasks we gave principals is to explain to them, to those families, that the challenges of installing the secure browser on their own device, and strongly encourage them to accept a district device. And we made sure that there was enough devices for every single student to have one. And so some families have elected to collect a district device, and that's better because we can't provide technical support for a home computer, a personally owned computer, but we can provide support for a district device. And that's why we're encouraging everybody to collect one, even if they plan to return it after testing is done. It's really a good idea that we have as few people as possible taking these tests on their own personal devices.
Thank you, Mike. I think that kind of ties into the next question with regards to when people are using the secure browser, what are the restrictions and or limitations with regards to synchronous viewing? So like if we're on Zoom, for example, as most of us conduct our typical classrooms, how does that play into or interact with the secure browser? Are you able to communicate with your students?
Oh, so once the secure browser is launched, there can be no communication between the teacher and the student until the student begins the test. They go through all the login steps on their own. And once this test begins, the communication widgets, they're called, become active, or at least they're supposed to. We're having some issues with that not quite working as smoothly as it should, or as advertised here and there. And we're working with technical support from Educational Testing Service on that. But the way it's supposed to work is you have a Zoom meeting ahead of time. You read them the say box and the DFA and any other information you want to give them. You direct them, share with them their test session ID number. Make sure they have their SSID number handy. If not, give it to them through private chat in Zoom. Then instruct them to quit, close Zoom out on their end, quit all applications, and then launch the secure browser. And so until they get into the test itself and you've approved them in the test administrator interface, you have this gap of time where there's just no communication between you and the student. It's like the Mars lander that landed last week, I guess it was, or maybe it was the week before. They talked about the 7 minutes of terror where they'd lose communication between, Earth and the spacecraft, and didn't connect until the lander was on the ground. So it's kind of like that. You're going to have this few minutes of terror, not knowing whether your students are going to show up or not. During that time, it's a good idea for you, the examiner, to keep the Zoom meeting open so that if a student, has a catastrophic event, i.e. they can't log into the secure browser, they can quit the secure browser, launch Zoom again, and talk to you about next steps, how to get around this. So there's no restriction on what you're running on your end. You're not in the secure browser. It's only the students' end. And again, this is only grades 3 and up for ELPAC. K1-2, it's a totally different way of doing it.
Let's see if there's any other questions as I'm trying to write some of the responses you have, Mike, more popping in. They're asking if there are still district devices available, which I assume there are.
There are, yes. Yeah, the principal is sort of keeping track of that, the site principal. So if you have a question about it, talk to your principal.
Are there step-by-step written directions for teachers and students for ELPAC and for SBAC? I know that two things, and I'll let you chime in with more, but that on the actual Canvas page in Commons, Multilingual put something out, I believe. And then I think that there's, we were just looking at previously on the CAASPP site, that there's also information.
Yeah, so I would definitely go to the website I showed you where the videos are. There's also quick reference guides, they call them. They're written instructions that basically summarize the steps in the video. Those would be very handy for you as they're PDFs. Another important document for ELPAC and for, I assume it's going to be coming forward for CAASPP as well, is something that's called the addendum to the DFA for remote testing. And that's got step-by-step information about it as well. And ultimately, you know, you can read all you want about it. You're really not going to learn it until you give it a try in a practice session of some form. So that's got to be a part of your preparation for testing.
Don't know that one. The next question, someone was asking if the district has any plans for combo teachers, namely a 2-3 combo, how they would administer the test to the, in this case, third graders.
So I'm trying to decide if I want to answer this first in regard to ELPAC versus CAASPP. You know, with ELPAC, grade 2 and grade 3 take different tests. So if you've got a 2-3 combo, you know, I would work with my site coordinator and my colleagues and see if there was some sort of task sharing that could be done, so that you wouldn't have to learn how to score the speaking for both of those grade levels, and see if you can get a second grade colleague to take on the second grade, or a third grade colleague to take on your third graders while you worked with your second graders. You know, those kind of arrangements are best done locally. So I'd encourage you to pursue something like that. When it comes to smarter balanced testing, the SBAC, obviously the third graders take the test, the second graders do not. That's probably, again, going to be a local decision. These tests can be administered at any time during the day. So you could use synchronous time or asynchronous time. And with a 2-3 combo, it might make sense to push the testing to asynchronous time, so that you've got some direct instruction time with your second graders, and you're not depriving them of that. Another way to handle it would be, again, sharing responsibility with a colleague, or in a lot of cases, principals are hiring subs to do that kind of coverage, so that you could work with your third graders on the test during synchronous time, and graders would be
I think we lost you, Mike. Give you a second.
Every school's a little different, and a district solution is probably not the answer.
Thank you for tackling that difficult question, which I fully understand the challenges there. Speaking of challenges, someone had asked what is the best protocols in place for people that are encountering issues while administering the test? Is it going to be contacting NCS? Is it contacting you? Is it still Tectosa's help desk? I'm not sure if we know yet. Mike, if you want to speak to that.
What a good question. I attended a brief casual training last Friday. It was what they call them coffee sessions, hosted by ETS and the Department of Ed. And they shared with us a slide that I'm going to be putting out to folks. And it was a troubleshooting checklist. Here are the things you do if you encounter trouble. And once you've done that, if you're still in trouble, call ETS's line, Caltech. Caltech is what the office is called. So they don't want individual test administrators, test examiners to make that call. They would like you to raise your technical issue with your site coordinator and have your site coordinator call Caltech. They'll want you on the Zoom, so get on a Zoom meeting with the your site coordinator, whether it's your principal or assistant principal or a colleague. And so that when the site coordinator is talking to Caltech, you can answer questions, you can describe the situation, you could share your screen, etc., so that this stuff can be communicated to Caltech. I can tell you that the issues we've had so far involve the student, the camera, the teacher being able to see the student in the test administrator interface. And I've had three site coordinators contact Caltech, and not one of them has had a resolution yet. We're still waiting on a resolution. So, that basically describes the protocol, and I will be writing that down and sending it to site coordinators to communicate to you and give you the checklist, the troubleshooting checklist that you should go through before reaching out to your site coordinator to contact Caltech.
Thank you, Mike. Someone else is asking if we might be able to either preview or at least show again where the resource exists for the videos on students to be able to download a secure browser. I know we have separate ones for both Mac OS as well as PC or Windows.
Will do. Okay, so that's on the district homepage. We have this online state testing, CAASPP ELPAC information. Click that. And it takes you to a page where these resources live. So here's the English version. Here's, they're not necessarily, yeah, they're in a pretty good order. So identifying the version of Windows, you need to know what version of Windows you have before you install the secure browser. How to download the secure browser, how to identify your Mac OS. Here's secure browser installation for Windows. Here's the document about finding the SSID. And then here's the two how to take videos. And Gabe, do you know where the Chinese version of this video ended up?
No, I'm not sure, but I just want to make the distinction while you're right there is that there's two things available. And I know you alluded to it earlier, but there's the step-by-step guide in addition to the video itself. So if your students or you yourself are not wanting to then maybe share screen and display that, although that might be a really good suggestion for your class, especially if you have a large portion of them needing to download the browser. But the other thing is you have the step-by-step guide. So just knowing that you have those two resources at your fingertips there.
I think I should have that, but I think I was told to wait just in case the state came out with their own version of that.
Yeah, they have no intent of producing that.
Oh, okay, so maybe then I need to send it over.
They do plan to do, step-by-step guides in, I think seven different languages, but the video's just English, Spanish.
Okay, I'll send it over.
Mike, there's some, I guess, uncertainty with regards to what is the difference between the secure browser for students and for teachers? Meaning that if I'm using a personal device and I'm a teacher, do I still need to download a secure browser, or where am I going to go to be able to administer the test itself versus my students going to actually take the test?
So whether it's ELPAC or CAASPP SBAC, the person delivering the test to students does not use the secure browser at any time. You're using, for CAASPP, you're using exclusively the test administrator interface that's linked off of CAASPP.org. For ELPAC, you'll be using what's called the web-based student testing interface for the speaking portion. And that basically looks like the secure browser, but it doesn't need to be secure. And so that is found in, oh, I need to go home. Here, it's this link here, web-based student testing interface. It's a kind of a misnomer because the students don't ever use it themselves.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah, they, oh, I need to share my screen. Oh. Okay, let me go back so you can see. I clicked here on Spring Administration Remote Testing Guidance. And it took me to this landing page, and here's another link to this test administrator interface where you'll start, stop, and monitor a session. And this is the web-based student testing interface. Like I said, it's a misnomer because the students don't ever use, well, the only time a student would use this is if they're using it to take an IAB. But the teacher will log the student into this for ELPAC speaking portion. You know, select your state and the testing system, click OK. And it just becomes login to the system. Okay, so that's, hopefully that answers that question. So these are the only tools that the teacher administering tests will use, and they do not require the secure browser.
The last question, I think, is more so kind of just overarching, but related to connectivity and internet speed. They're saying that students are having issues with the district provided hotspots. So are there any suggestions that we have, I guess, to troubleshoot or just to help improve that?
Yeah, I recognize that that is going to be a problem indeed. And, you know, whether it's a district hotspot or just a home network that's being shared by other family members, you know, siblings trying to attend to school, other family members playing video games or watching streaming video on TV. All of that puts a strain on home networks that are definitely less robust than the network we have at the school site, at school sites. So, you know, yeah, it is an issue, and maybe Tectoses or NCS have some pointers. I don't know, but yeah, it is definitely going to be an issue, and that sort of leads me to one of the other waivers that the State Board of Ed is going to ask of the federal government, and that is to waive the requirement that we test at least 95% of our students. So what we would be saying to the state is we will test as many as we possibly can, given the time restraints, the technology constraints, and the, you know, the remote all the other challenges that remote testing places with us. It is very, very likely that that waiver will be granted. So we should make a sincere effort to test every student who needs to be tested. And we should document failed attempts to test students carefully so that we can say, we may not have tested 95% of our students, but we tried to test 100% of them. And here's the proof. And here are the reasons why each individual student couldn't be tested. I've already asked site coordinators to collect that information about students. And so, there's a process in place for that. But in terms of troubleshooting home network issues and hotspot issues, I really am not the expert on that. And I would defer to NCS, who definitely have more expertise than I, for sure.
Mike, and I'm just curious, I know that some sites and some users, we as TOSA started to get our accounts created because when you prompted by going through that process, we all saw that it asks for your login credentials. So I'm just, I guess, trying to clarify, teachers asking, have all sites received their accounts? Or is there something that teachers need to do? Is it test site coordinator? Just so they know next steps regarding access.
So at the beginning of the year, I created accounts in TOMS for all language arts and all teachers who teach language arts and or math at whatever grade level. Teachers that I was able to identify, right? Teachers who had rosters. So the type of person who might have been missed in that process are itinerant teachers who don't have a solid roster from day to day. RSP teachers at sites who don't have a roster of their own. They just work with students who are on other people's rosters. And these are people who may very well need an account. So either the site coordinator can add those folks, or they can ask me to add them for them, because it's an upload process that's kind of frustrating. You used to be able to add these people manually, but now you have to put them in a file and upload the file, and so it's not as friendly a step as it used to be. But at any rate, I have asked all of my site coordinators to review their list of users in TOMS and to either add or let me know who I should add. So I've been doing that, a few times a week. I'm getting somebody needing to be added. So if you don't have an account yet, talk to your site coordinator, principal, or whoever that person is.
Great, thank you. I don't see any additional questions. I don't know if anyone has any live questions or maybe something that was asked for, some other curiosity you may have while we have Mike with us. Please unmute and let yourself be heard.
I guess I covered it all.
We're putting a link with the survey. If you have a moment, if you wouldn't mind filling that out. And if there's anything else, maybe not related to SBAC, there's so many great minds in the room. We'd love for you to be able to ask and hopefully get something answered.
You could always reach me. Meade is my email starter. And I'll try to answer you as quick as I can if something does occur to you.
While we still have some people here, we will let you know that next week we're planning to hold a kind of follow-up we'll talk about just some of the following. And so we'll talk about some of the resources that are already made available to you, how you can be able to differentiate between scores, whether it be claim scores or overall scores, just more information related to SBAC. So again, if you're interested, please join us next week. There'll be information shared pertaining to SBAC that wasn't touched upon today or last week.
Thanks, everybody.